Well, I have to tell you, it's few and far between that we get pieces of good news these days. But when I heard that last night the union blinked, at least in the case of this flight attendant, I thought there's a flicker of hope. And joining us now via Skype from Calgary, the labor lawyer who crafted the complaint, Matthew Macdonald, who joins us now by Skype. Matthew Macdonald, first of all, welcome to the show and congratulations. I've been following this out of the corner of my eye for 2 months now. I'm delighted with the legal work itself, but you had a little bit of success yesterday. Put it in your own words, because I don't want to overstate it, but I don't want to understate it. What happened yesterday that changed things?
Well, we got word that some of the members that have been affected by this policy and were facing discipline, the union is actually going to represent them and grieve the discipline that's being brought against them. So we actually have the union, we pushed the union to do what we think they should have done all along, which is represent its members.
Well, I mean, that sort of seems like their mission statement. I saw a Unifor shop steward who was fired who said, if the union and the company are saying the same thing, one of them isn't needed. I mean, of all the things a union should be doing, this is the crisis. You mentioned multiple members. Our Fight Vaccine Passports case had one client, a flight attendant, who we're not saying her name for privacy reasons, but you just said multiple staff. Are there other flight attendants or gate agents who are now being helped by the union?
We have reason to believe from people that we're working with who have been approaching us about our complaint as well as wanting to work together that it seems to be other members that are getting representation. So the work has helped more than just one person, we think.
Well, that's excellent. Can I ask you a question? If there are other Air Canada employees who are part of CUPE, do you think this would naturally come to their aid, or should contact us and be connected with you?
They should talk to their union first and make the request there. The union's making it very clear they don't want me involved. Now they're certainly asserting their rights and saying that they will deal with the members affected, and that's what they do. So they should talk to the union, and they can contact us through you, and I'm sure we can give them some help, but that they should make the request to the union and just say that they are facing discipline and termination because of this policy and their reasons why, and they are asking for representation, and I think this precedent should help them.
Well, I'm very pleased, and I guess that's what I was asking about. Is this just their attempt to get you off their back? Because I've read some of the back and forth between you, and I've read the 344-page complaint, and I can imagine they say, just make this guy go away. But we don't just want to help one person. Part of the strategy behind FightVaccinePassports.com is to take on institutional employers or schools so that one legal success can actually help dozens or even hundreds of people. So I guess that's important to me. Do you think this is broader than just the one client? I mean, you mentioned Absolutely. That there is, but do you think this will be a policy across CUPE?
I think that CUPE is quite concerned about the fact, the issues that we raised in that letter. I think they're concerned that they may be being vulnerable to not meeting what's called their duty of fair representation. And so I think that they are definitely going to be more proactive in representing members who are facing individual grievances. It was their whole reason for not doing anything on the policy was they said, well, we'll deal with it on individual cases as they come. And now they have to do that. We're making them put their money where their mouth is.
I just wonder, and you don't give away any confidences, but have you spoken with the flight attendant in question? What's her reaction? Is she relieved? Is she happy? I mean, we've kept sort of at arm's length for privacy and solicitor-client reasons. Have you talked to the client?
I have, and she's happy. She's cautious. She's been in the union environment, so she knows what dynamics are at play, and I think she is concerned about reprisals, and that's why she's grateful for the work that's being done here to protect her rights. So I'd say she's cautiously hopeful.
I got a question for you, and this just shows that these days I'm very skeptical, I'm pessimistic. You know, you can call me paranoid a little bit, Matthew, but I think these times can maybe justify it. Is the union really grieving this with their whole heart, or are they just going through the motions? Because you had to really twist their arm for 2 full months before they said, all right, fine, we'll help her. And you just said they don't want you involved. All right, that makes me nervous. What do you think about the prospect? And tell me if I'm just too paranoid, but that they're going through the motions of a grievance, but they're just phoning it in, and that they don't actually want to succeed. They don't actually want to stop Air Canada's vax policy. They haven't wanted to stop it so far, and they're just doing this to get you off their back.
That's obviously a concern, and I think that that's a founded concern, and we'll be monitoring how they deal with the complaints and whether they put their heart into it and be ready to make another complaint to the Labour Board to keep their feet to the fire if they don't.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. Now, I know there's a different set of unions for different types of workers at Air Canada. I understand the pilots have their own union, and frankly, I was a little surprised to hear that CUPE was the union for Air Canada, but maybe that dates back to when Air Canada was a state airline. Do you know offhand if other unions have taken a different approach? For example, let's say there was a pilot who was in the same position as this flight attendant. Do they have any help from their union, or do you think we should replicate what we're doing for this flight attendant for the pilots too?
Well, there's certainly a debate in the union world right now about this issue, and there are some unions you see in the complaint that we cited the TTC in Toronto, which are taking on these issues very aggressively, and there are others that seem to be aligning with their political views with Justin Trudeau. And so some unions are taking this seriously, and others are seems to be that they're putting their political views ahead of other duties that they have. And I think this is going to be a warning shot to all of them, that they need to focus on what their legislative duty is under the law, which is to represent their members fairly. And and if they don't do that, they're going to face consequences before the board because of people like you and who are defending their members when they aren't, or if they aren't.
I want to be fair to Air Canada, that they're doing this, I think, because they're being pressured into it by the government. In fact, Trudeau has made it very clear that he doesn't even want to let anyone fly on a plane who's not vaxxed, let alone work on a plane. So part of me sympathizes with Air Canada that they're caught in the middle here. If these cases are grieved by the union against Air Canada, what happens there? What happens if, to Air Canada, because they got their back up against the wall with Trudeau, and they were looking to take it out on their members, but now, thankfully, CUPE's going to grieve on behalf of the flight attendants. This could take some time. I don't know how long a grievance like this would take, but it may go past Trudeau's deadline. It may, I wonder if Air Canada itself has a viewpoint on this. Maybe they don't like being caught in the middle. I know a bunch of U.S. airlines got really between themselves and their own, flight attendants and staff. What do you think is going to happen? Or is that just beyond your, I guess it's anyone's guess, maybe?
Well, Air Canada has assigned this complaint to a lawyer there, so they're an interested party, and we'll see what they say. And I am sympathetic to them. It's in some ways because they are caught in the middle, but this underscores why everyone has to fulfill their roles in these processes, and that's what we're doing, is pushing the union to fulfill its role. I think an important thing that people don't understand is that a member of the union can't go to court. Their access to justice is completely taken away by operation of the collective agreement and the relevant labor legislation. And so if the union doesn't stand up for members, it's not just, they don't get their support. They actually members have no other recourse to the courts other than through the union. And that's, I think, very important. That's why it's good what you're doing. In terms of Air Canada, they're aware of the process. They're given notice, and I'm sure they're going to take it seriously. But I think they're already caught in the middle and probably not wanting to get any more mud on their face.
I got to tell you, we're looking at a lot of different unions that are balking at supporting their members. And I'm frustrated by that. If you would have told me 2 years ago that a right-winger like me would be crowdfunding money to take on the case of union members to get stronger union representation against their bosses at multinational corporations, I would have said, you're talking to me from an alternative universe. But here we are. I mean, Matthew, I don't know your politics. You've mentioned Trudeau a couple times, critically, I think, so I presume you're not a fan of the Liberal Party. I don't know your politics. If you're in labor law, maybe you're a man of the left. But I find it heartbreaking that people who traditionally have called themselves progressive are not standing up for actual working class people. They're siding with big pharma. That's weird. And ideas of my body, my choice, personal privacy, civil liberties. The left used to really own those things. And I wish there were more voices on the left. You mentioned there's some unions that are doing a good job. You mentioned a few of them. I appreciate that. I don't know if you want to make a comment in general, because all I want is strong unions now, and those are words I wouldn't say, but you've got thousands and thousands of people, like you say, no access to the courts, and the bosses are in league with the companies. The union bosses are in league with the companies. I can't imagine a more frustrating thing. What's happened to our world, Matthew?
Well, what a world we live in, where Ezra Levant is the leading labor activist in Canada.
I wouldn't say I'm the leading labor activist, but I feel like I have a role to play. It's not me, by the way. You're nice to say, you're flattering me, but let me correct you. It's our viewers who are the donors who, God bless them, have crowdfunded this. And I think that they would, if this flight attendant's name will remain private for the reasons you alluded. But I think that our viewers, if they had historically called themselves right-wing or left-wing or big business or farmers or everything, they would think of a flight attendant, an exemplary worker who's done nothing wrong, who's about to be sacked, even though she had natural immunity and recovered and has strong immunity. They wouldn't think of her as right-wing or left-wing. They would just think of her as a Canadian who's being treated unfairly. And in a way, I like this realignment. I like getting to know this flight attendant as a human, not left-wing, right-wing union member or whatever. I think what you're doing, Matthew, is very important. So you gave me a compliment. I'll one right back to you. And I know that our friend Sarah Miller has been involved with this. She's been a great civil libertarian, and Robert Hawkes as well. Are you going to keep up this fight? Will you take other work like this, Matthew?
Absolutely. I think there are very important issues here at play. As I talked about, this is really about some fundamental constitutional rights, including access to justice, and ensuring all Canadians have that. And we're going to keep doing that and fighting for them.
Well, I want to thank you. When I heard last night that the union blinked and that they're going to grieve for this flight attendant, I almost couldn't believe it. Because Air Canada is really one of the large institutions of this country. It's a flagship company. It's political, as we've seen in Quebec lately. And if we can fight the battle there, then there's hope for everyone. Matthew Macdonald, it's great to talk to you. I hope we can catch up with you later on. Hopefully it'll be for good news again. And perhaps we'll have you battling other cases too.
Great. Looking forward to it.
All right. Well, great to have you, and keep up the great work. And please give the regards from all our viewers to the flight attendant whose name we're not mentioning. Tell her that she may feel alone, but she is not alone.
I'll pass that along. I know she appreciates it.
All right, there you have it. Matthew Macdonald, labor lawyer in Calgary, who had a bit of a victory yesterday. Stay with us. More ahead. That's an excerpt from my daily show, The Ezra Levant Show. Every day I do a monologue on the news of the day, then I interview an interesting guest, and then I read my hate mail. You gotta subscribe. Go to rebelnews.com.